Welcome to Primary Complete, episode 013. In this episode, Steve, Matt, and Jeremy have great kitchen table style conversation, bouncing between self-reflection as it pertains to setting personal standards, trust, and a bit on crisis management. We wrapped up the show a little bit different. One of our listeners and good friends was nice enough to send us a bottle of spirits. And by spirits, I mean whiskey. Make sure you tune in and listen to our unboxing and tasting. This could be the start of a new little project, but we'll need your help. Send us your favorite brand of spirits in the show comment section or on social media, and we may taste it on a show. Or you can just send us the bottle, because we love a good gesture. As always, thank you for your support. Like and subscribe on all platforms. Tell your friends and help grow the education, empowerment, and hope for the future movement that is Primary Complete. Enjoy episode 013. A lot of things that I hear is folks will blame their lack of self-discipline, or they'll blame things on external influences versus inward reflection. Is they'll notice I'm lacking in an area due to this reason, and none of that starts with, well, I've fallen below my own personal standard, or there's a lot of focus on external factors, but no self-reflection on themselves. And if it's something that they could have changed themselves, or if it's something that they couldn't. But it just, maybe the expectations of standards within for oneself, I don't know, it's difficult to talk about it. It's basically just self-discipline is all it is. Try to sugarcoat it, say standards and whatnot, but it's just self-discipline is all it is. And that's something that is just what it says. It's self-discipline. It can't be something that's, I didn't get it from my mama. My mom and daddy weren't disciplined people, so now I'm not a disciplined person, or things like that. Military happens with military folks a lot. They'll be disciplined. The military is a very disciplined profession, and they'll be sticking to a standard, the military standard, until they get out. And when they get out, it's like, yeah. They don't work out, they don't stay in shape. It's just they turn into whatever, become lazy or whatever, just because they don't have any self-discipline, or they lose it or whatnot.
Yeah. Self-discipline is one of those things that once it fades, then you're mad at yourself.
Yeah.
You see whatever results that you gained. I tried to learn. My brother went to Japan for 2 years. I was like, I'll learn Japanese. Kind of like be able to chat with him.
Yeah.
And I took some and I learned some. Now I know zero.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I could have a conversation with him and now it's pretty much gone.
That's how I feel about my fitness right now.
Yeah.
Right. And it happens a lot with guys with with fitness. And it's mostly and you don't see it until, and I'm specifically talking about fitness here, but sometimes you just don't see people take fitness seriously until something bad happens. And they're just weighing the worth. Okay, what is it worth for my time and effort in something? And if that worth is something that's pretty important, then you'll devote more self-discipline towards it, and you'll stay disciplined towards it. But if you don't have any worth in it, then it kind of just Japanese. Great example. You couldn't find worth in it anymore. Yeah. It was hot. It was nice. You had worth while your brother was going, but then, do you really need to know Japanese?
Yeah, no.
Your brain takes over, and it's like, I don't have space in here for this right this second.
But it's funny, though, is that it occupies my mind all the time. But yet, my schedule is it becomes such a low priority. Not quite a low priority, but I think about something like when I'm in the middle of doing something, it's like, you really need to do this. But then it's like, when those rest comes, it's like, fuck, now I'm beat. I've been like going through all this school, like 5 hours of schoolwork, and then now I had to stop because I have to go take the kids somewhere, or to relieve Melissa for something. She's got to go to work, so now I got to take out this, and it's like the time, like the self-discipline. Like, I really should wake up a lot earlier,
right, and
work out. We just bought like a treadmill and a Bowflex in the garage just to have something there because Noah wanted to get into it, and right. Melissa, and so it's just. I don't think it leaves your mind, especially fitness is like ice always in the front part of my mind. It's like, you really have got to do this. You've got to do this. Like, it's, ugh.
Yeah.
every physical I go to.
Yeah, it's but I bet if you were to have a heart attack or a cardiac event or something like that, it would immediately, the worth value would just go,
Yeah, I
you
know.
know, it would just raise up. And it's not that. I'm into fitness huge. I work out a lot, and I find I'm in the same struggle. I have the same struggles you do. You know, I'll be out there getting it in the shop, whatnot, and I'll complete a task, and I'll be like, all right, time to go to the gym. Then I'll go inside, and I'll vacuum, because that's what I do every day.
Yeah.
And I'll go inside, and I'll vacuum, and I'll get done vacuuming, and I'll be like, I got like 2 hours before I got to go get the kids. Do I go run, or do I just chill, because I know it's going to be nuts when they get home, and, you know, it's going to require a lot of energy, or do I just do something else, go back out in the shop? So I had the exact same struggles, and I was just like, no. You got to go get at it. You got to go get after it.
Yeah.
You got to do something. You gotta do
I know
something.
my issue is I know it's a mindset. It's a
Yep.
mental block. I know I can do it. I've done it, and occasionally I'll break through it. It's just not consistent.
Right.
I can't get that. And once I get a routine going, it's great. But then once I get a routine going, and as soon as one little hiccup happens, one little thing like breaks that routine, it's like you fall down a hill. Ugh,
The baddest of the bad are bad until they
worse.
see their own blood.
it's awful.
Yeah. If you've got a routine going and your discipline's on, and then you fall off or whatever, like something comes up, you get busy,
Yeah.
and then next thing you know, you're like downing on yourself for something that was supposed to be positive. So it's almost like it flips on you.
Right.
So that should add value. It should
Sure.
add value to that. Like, hey, I'm gonna stay on this because I know I'll be pissed at myself if I let it go.
I beat myself up daily.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Have you noticed too when you're going down this path and you're being very self-disciplined, if you take a step off for a minute, then it becomes way easier to take a step off next time.
Oh, yeah.
And then next time, and
It's
the next
like-
time, and then it's just not a thing. I've always told people, since I've been training people for a long time, many years now, I've always told them the first step, the hardest step is the first step. Once you cross the threshold and walk into the gym, the hard part's over.
Yeah.
The working out is just find a way to make that fun.
Dude, I agree
But
with you. Yeah.
it's the hardest part to get up and cross the threshold, open the door. Once the door's open, it's downhill from there.
Yeah.
Everything is just beneficial from there. But that's the hardest part. It's
That's
just
true, man.
going.
60% of the battle is just getting into the door.
I don't even know if I would probably say more than 60.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
You're
my
right,
God.
man.
Yeah.
It is. It's like a Rocky Balboa
Yeah.
Apollo Creed fight.
Yeah. And then especially, okay, so you take that same aspect and the same conversation we're having with fitness, and you just take fitness out of it and put something else in it, whether it be training or something that somebody in personnel is lacking in. And it's an area they know they're lacking in. They've self-reflected enough to know, they say, you know, I'm not proficient with pulling a hose line, or I'm not proficient in communication, just talking or studying. And it's the same thing. I mean, you can plug and play this however you want. You just got to get started and keep rolling on with it and find some kind of groove to get in. Agree? Disagree?
Yes.
Nah, man, I'm with you 100%. I'm trying to. I want to disagree with you so we can debate it, but so far I'm with you 100%.
You're totally right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why the mind is like the biggest. It's like the biggest trap. It's the biggest hurdle that you can overcome.
Yeah, it's a very difficult thing, and you surround yourself with people who don't have the same. They don't have the same kind of objection with you. You know, they don't have the same convictions as you do. So if you surround yourself, like being physically active is your struggle. Okay, so surround yourself with people who are not physically active. Just makes it harder.
That's what it was easy whenever I was on shift with you and
Yeah,
Kevin, and then you guys were
just-
like motivating, like
Yeah.
when we started like lifting a lot, and that
right.
was very motivating. But
So
now I surround myself with people in a Zoom call in
yeah,
my bedroom.
Right.
I get it. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. So I guess the power of external motivation, and then not using external factors as a means of an excuse, it's kind of a catch-22 if you think about it. I mean, I believe in external motivation for a little bit, but after a while it goes away. It's kind of like monetary compensation for anything. If you have a problem in a workplace and you just give everybody money because of it, that's great. And it goes away for about this long, you know,
Yeah.
It goes away for a couple of days. And then the problems were never fixed and the money just doesn't matter anymore. So you can't use monetary compensation. You can't rely on external influence in order to get your motivation. You got to get that going within yourself.
So aside from working out and learning Japanese, what's another thing that you can inject in that? like fire service related?
Any training aspect, but I would say departments all across the nation and the world for that matter, they're pretty, whether you get into the type of training that they're offering or they're delivering, they're still offering a means of getting training. So it's there. I would say probably the things that maybe we struggle at that are not so presented: communication, other types of hired learning, whether it be college or things like that. It's not something they want you to have it, but it's not 36 hours of EMT. It's not 30 hours of hazmat or whatever it may be. It's not a line item. So if that's one of your focuses, being able to, stay on those tasks, when odds are you're not surrounded by people who think that. If you're going through college courses, I'm not the guy to motivate you for that, because that's just, I have zero desire for that in my life. It's sad, but I have zero desire for it.
I heard that, yeah.
I place the worth on the worth column on that at the very bottom. So that's just me.
Before I went through the captain process, I knew that size ups were going to be a big deal, and I didn't have much experience. Like, we don't get that much fire. So I went to YouTube. Me and Ethan would do it, and we just take turns, pull up a random residential structure fire in some random town, and then whenever the video started, whatever you see, that's what you're pulling up to, and then deliver a size up. That was a discipline thing.
Well, it seemed to work. I mean, that's fantastic. Fantastic. How often did y'all do that?
Every shift.
So y'all maintain that. Yeah,
we did. I through the process, and it's a good method. Then I ended up taking Blue Card. The good part about Blue Card gets a bad rap. Some people hate it.
I'm going through it right now. So
yeah, there's good parts to it. I feel like it might be a little heavy on repetition.
Well, that's how you develop this.
I think that's by design.
It's
by design.
It's very by design.
Yeah, it's just so frustrating.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
But
that worth category.
If you can get on scene and use that muscle memory to dole out some assignments and not sound like you're freaking out, then bravo.
Right.
So that's a good spot, and that takes discipline to dedicate. Of course, if you're going through Blue Card, it's more than discipline. You got a deadline.
Sure. Yeah. 12 months.
Yeah.
For me, anyway.
It's getting ready to lapse for me.
Ooh.
I asked.
To
I
get
was
them
like,
Con Ed hours.
You want me? No. I asked. I was like, do I need to? I'm like, it's up to you. Same thing with CPS.
No.
I was like, they left it up to me. I'm like, I ain't got time for that shit, bro.
That worth column.
Yeah, yes. Stuff. I was like, I asked Stuff. I was like, hey, if you were me, what would you do? He's like, it's not like you're gonna forget it.
Yeah.
That's for
Sure.
I guess so.
Yep.
Yeah, Blue Card was an interesting topic. We can talk about that some other time if you want.
Yeah, we touched on it with Bob Zine.
We did a little bit,
Yeah.
sure.
With that being a paid entity, I don't know if you gotta be a little careful with that. How much you get?
Oh yeah,
into it.
yeah, sure.
I'm not saying anything bad about it.
Yeah.
It was a hard class as far as the repetition. Jesus Christ, but
I think there's something, and I think there's something to be gathered from that. Where, the repetition is I mean, it's monotonous and it just carries on and on and on. But then at the same time, where you said you can kind of get on scene and just kind of go through these muscle memory motions of just saying that there's a lot to be said about somebody who can get on a scene of something awful and just sound totally cool. Because we all know them, the officers who get on scene and it sounds like they're losing their mind. Not only do we, the ones who are not going to the actual scene, laugh at them, but the guys responding, it alters their mental
Or the
status
ones that
as
just
well.
say so much that
Right.
doesn't
Overload
need to be in
you.
there.
Yeah.
Like there's just you're just word salad. There's too much in here.
Yeah. There's one engine company on my shift that arrives on scene, and I'm like, bro, I know you've been through Blue Card.
Right.
And the only thing you ever hear is that engine has arrived, and that's it. And I'm like,
Okay.
come on, man, give us something.
Okay.
Didn't Dave Hibben and he said he did it on purpose?
Yeah.
To try to
He would
Yeah.
never say anything.
He would never say anything.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he believed that
Your first dues,
you do a size up because it's your first due. I'll be stretching a line because that's my job.
Yeah, that's cool.
Pretty funny.
Yeah. So I guess kind of remaining with the self-discipline and self-standards, if somebody has established kind of a standard for themselves, something they're working towards, or, how they like to conduct training with themselves, or whatever. But I'm trying to think of how to make it something maybe a little more personal, maybe a moral thing, where they have a set of morals that is their standard. They just don't do something, fart at the kitchen table, whatever. They just have a moral. At what point is it acceptable for the person to kind of be flexible when it comes to their morals? And then what determines the hard point where they just have to let everybody know?
Like I'll bend a little bit to keep peace in a room, like there's language that I don't like to hear.
Sure.
And if it's like a one time, or if I'm in a party setting or something, I'm not gonna make a big deal over it.
Sure.
But if I'm in my house and then this person repeatedly, then I'm gonna change that situation. So that's more than 10 degrees off.
Sure.
If I was gonna compare that to like I'm on the job, and I've got my routine. Like I train, at 18 back in the day, we would come in, get the truck straight, work out, train, clean up, eat lunch, and then knock out the duties of the day,
Right.
like daily duties and any MTOs or whatever. But that was our routine, and I miss it. We do it. We've gotten back into it now, so it's a really good example actually. And there's such a reward when we do it, but stuff always comes up.
Oh yeah.
Like something will come in, like we gotta go do hydrants or go do something that's important, but I do feel myself, like I'll notice the 10 degrees or more. I'm like, all right, let's try to make this a priority. Does that kind of answer your question?
I mean, it does, and I don't even know if it was a question, just a kind of a statement. But
Yeah.
that brings to a great topic. Unless Jeremy, you got something to add to it, but the guilt versus the enjoyment of the reward of remaining to to remaining to the path.
So the path you're referring to is a personal path, like your personal convictions and what you tolerate. So there is a fine line, and you yourself may not necessarily need to bend and go outside of your own moral convictions. You do have to realize that other people do have their own moral convictions. They're on their own path. So there's a certain way when you're with somebody for 24 hours a day, and really most of the time it's not by choice, but you do have to kind of work together. You got a job to do. You both common goals. So there's a way, but if like something's bothering you, it is your right to speak up and say, hey, this kind of offends me, or this doesn't bother you. You don't need to stay suppressed, but you do have to respect other people's opinions.
Sure. In a firehouse setting, how do you believe that I think that goes on more than people realize. If you ask me, I would say a lot of people kind of are, for lack of better terminology, more offended maybe by language or gesture or something like that goes on in the firehouse, but they're just never going to say anything. One, because I think there's a right way and a wrong way to bring up your dissatisfaction with somebody's behavior. There's a right way and a wrong way, and there's a way to get a positive response for both folks. One, where you're respected, and two, where you're not completely destroyed and eaten alive. What are y'all's opinions on the right way and the wrong way to do that?
Motives is kind of where you always come back when you're having these conversations. Your motives and where you're coming from with them.
But do you do that at our kitchen table setting? Is that the time to have that conversation, or is that the time to object to something that
I think
if there's a trigger word that just
I think if it's
tears you.
I think if it's if it's like culturally that's how it's happening and it's really bothering the person,
Right.
then you've got to eventually say something. If it's a person offending a person, I think those two people need to have that conversation.
Perfect.
You said something in the 360 episode that applies. Sometimes you got to withdraw from the firehouse and have that bourbon conversation or breakfast or whatever. Yeah, it's sometimes you got to get out, get away.
Right.
I
agree.
Yeah, let that something about the uniforms being present and the, you can't say this or that. Man, it takes away the stress of that conversation and makes it just natural.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think it's common for somebody to come in on a group where they have to address a group, because you get one person influencing the rest of the group, and they kind of eventually, if you get introduced into an environment, you inadvertently let your guard down, let your morals get loose a little bit. You kind of start mixing in with the crowd, what the norm is. You start adjusting to the social norm, and a lot of the times it's unintentional, but you start kind of going with the group. So if you introduce a new person and they're not so quick muddied, you might have to address the group.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah,
I agree.
Man, about a year ago, I had a little something going on shift, and it was no policy. Like, it wasn't a policy issue. So I was frustrated, but I was also dissatisfied. I was like, man, I can't single anybody out. So I fashioned this email or text message and sent it to the group. I must have rewritten that text message. I bet I refashioned it at least a dozen times. I had to get the cuss words out of it. And then I'd read it and be like, all right, am I just being, is this personal? So I tried to slide the personal out, and I ended up firing that text message off. And then later it was called into question, and I was able to stand by it because I took the time to make sure I was communicating something proper. So that conversation, whether you withdraw or have it in the firehouse, it does need to be a controlled, like, get yourself in check. Like, make sure, like, are you just upset about something? You might have some shit going on at home. So if you do a self-check, go ahead and get that system in order. And you're like, all right, yeah, this is something I need to talk about.
Yeah, my wife often, she says it all the time, that she'll never say anything, especially in an argument. She's never going to say anything she's going to have to apologize for, ever. I disagree with her a lot. I think there's quite a few things that she said that she should apologize for. But, yeah, that's when it comes to self-standards, that's it for her. We can be in a knockdown, drag-out, and she'll just stop talking. She won't respond or react to anything. Just ice cold. It's like, what? We're fighting. This is good. We're in it. I'm going to win this one, and we're in it. And she'll just nothing.
So for her, she knows that she's prone to...
She is not going to say anything
Yeah.
that she's going to have to apologize for. And she will just stop talking completely.
Yeah.
I think that process you're talking about is very important. If you can catch yourself and not lash out in the immediate. But
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Reacting on emotion.
You think like somebody writes a book, they don't send out their very first draft.
Nice.
So, and I think it's almost therapeutic if you don't have somebody you can immediately talk to. If you write it out, let your emotions pour out on it. Mm-hmm. Then let it sit. Then come back to it. Maybe when you've calmed down a little bit, maybe a day, maybe 12 hours, whatever. Yeah, come back to it with less emotion. Then look at kind of what you see. Then you can clear it up, and then you can kind of see the message in between the high emotion and be like, is this still valid? Is this still important?
Yeah.
Clean it up. Make your second draft. Okay, I still feel this way. But yeah, I think that's very important.
Yeah. I think there's
Probably save a lot of jobs that way.
Yeah, there's
no
probably
kidding.
there's some sayings about that too, and I can't pull them out of my brain right this second. Yeah, I can't pull them out of my brain.
I told you guys about last year getting upset over the parking issue.
Yeah.
If I could have looked forward a year and be like, would I be upset about this parking issue? That day, it was important to me. You know what I mean? Like, I was fired up about it, but now looking back, it wasn't that big of a deal.
Well, I think you called and asked me. Now we talked about it, and like I didn't discount your credit. I could see from my end it wasn't a big deal to me, but I knew it was a big deal to you. And that's when I think you kind of asked me how you would handle it, or kind of how, like, some little bit of guidance, or kind of see how I would take it. And I think the biggest thing I go on is this that important to you that you're willing to really push through some heat for this, or if you whatever backlash comes your way, you feel convicted that this is the right and true way. Like, going back to your motives, like, you have to really stop and digest that.
You know what's cool? I did get in a little bit of trouble, but the parking problem was solved. So
Yeah, that's
There's nice barriers out now.
yeah,
yeah, that's a great thing to discuss. Is at what point do you have to make your rebuttals or your reactions to these things around you? Do you have to make them tactful? And at what point does it need to be a hard line? Like, you're, as silly as it may seem, your position with the parking, had you not made that an issue right then and there that day, and you had gone and you had lollygagged and taken 2 or 3 weeks to kind of gather your thoughts, would it even have been a thing? You probably would have talked yourself right out of it even being a problem at all. Not worth the headache that could come with it, and not anything. But at that point in time, reacting somewhat on emotion was appropriate, because it was
I
just
thought
some,
it was appropriate. Yeah.
well, was it? Well, I would say it's a problem with your firehouse. I mean, I would deem that as appropriate.
Yeah.
But something has to be done, and if it's a 2-week thing or a 2-day thing or something like that, it kind of loses its sense of urgency and maybe sense of importance. So I guess my fumbling, and there's probably not even a right answer, but what makes it okay to react instantaneously, and what makes it have to kind of go through this process where we need to reflect on ourselves and say, is this personal? Is it even that big a deal? Am I just acting on emotion? Or, because I think this can vary with a lot of people, and there can be a lot of confusion in it. It's like, well, to you right then, the parking was a big deal. Now, probably not. But,
Yeah. You know what I didn't do on that one that I did on my last situation? The last time I had a crisis that I had to manage, I looked forward. I was like, in 10 years, I want to look back and think I did everything. I did it right. I want to be proud of my actions. And that day, I was just mad. So it ended up working out. Like, it wasn't that big of a deal. But I was done with, I felt like the firehouse was being walked over.
Right.
That too many people were taking their liberties, and my boys were not being respected.
Yeah.
And that'll trigger an emotion.
Sure, it should.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
forward thinking, how many times have you forward thought and be like, and squash something? And like, okay.
Oh, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a practice that I have adapted probably over the past, I don't know, maybe 2 years or so. Mm-hmm. I've often caught myself acting on emotion in the midst of acting on emotion and had to stop and be like,
I don't think you can teach it. It's something that you have to learn from. I mean,
Certainly.
you're going to take
But
your burns. You're going
I've
to take your
started-
bumps and bruises, but
Yeah.
you'll learn after a couple of hard ones. You'll be like, how hard is this really going to be?
yeah, before you hit that send button on the computer or something, or on the text message or something like that,
That's where I think that experience, you get a little bit better at like, all right, this is immediate position. This is immediate stance I need to take on this. Like, I know where this is going.
Yeah. If you catch yourself high typing, I call it, if you're just pounding that keyboard, might better push away for a minute.
I want to take your pocket knife and pop that send button off the keyboard.
Yeah, just to
we're
get
not
it out
going
of
to hit
there.
that right in a second. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense.
It was silly training, but the county put us through email etiquette training, and I remember them saying,
I didn't get that email.
before you form an email, don't put the recipient in the send box, and that way you can't accidentally stroke the send button or enter twice, and send off an incomplete email or an angry one. So I actually follow that rule. So I'll write the email without putting the person I'm sending it to, and then when I'm done, I'll check it and then put it in there. It's a good little step.
That's kind of I'll think about it when we leave here tonight, and I'll end up calling y'all like I always do, but I'll end up doing something. But there was a saying about that. It's like, respond to a nasty email, type your response, then delete it, or something. There's something like that. Some kind of saying, way better than I just said it, but I'll remember it.
Yeah,
But
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, might be in that 30 lessons to my son email or something like that.
Yeah. I put in here a note about the whole self-reflecting thing. I noticed over the last couple of months something was bugging me. Like, I was dealing with a little anxiety and and something was at me and I could not figure that stuff out. And then when the problem presented itself over the next couple of days, I was like, I knew this. I knew something was up, and I was almost mad that I ignored those feelings of anxiety, of not being settled. Like, it was like, you question yourself, like you'll find out some information, and you're like, man, did I really know, or does it just make so much sense? And then I think about, like, I had thoughts. I had like, sleep was a little upset, some anxiety. I feel like I should have known that stuff was happening. So in my lesson learned, and the reason I wanted to bring that up was sometimes the most angry that I ever get is when I ignore my instincts.
Right.
You know, so you come across some kind of a problem, and your brain tells you, man, lean this way or lean that way, or don't say this or do, and then I'll ignore that, like, instinct and just go on with something. And if it bites me, I'm so mad at myself.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, well, that's a good, even talking in this self-discipline type of atmosphere that we're talking right now, the guilt aspect when you don't do something you know you're supposed to do versus the satisfaction of the reward, no matter how hard it is. Yeah, when you have a feeling you know you're supposed to do something, you know it, like, I'm supposed to do something.
Yeah.
And then you don't do it. There's the sheer disappointment.
Yeah.
That goes with it.
Trust those instincts, man. Yeah.
If you're on a strict diet and you shovel that piece of pizza in your mouth, and after you're like, damn, you're so disappointed or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Take out pizza and diet and substitute anything, but it's just like that sheer disappointment.
I just constantly have Ray yelling in my ear. That's what he used to say. It wasn't the moment on the lips thing. It was nothing feels as good as being thin. Or nothing tastes as good as being thin.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I think a Chick-fil-A milkshake is pretty close.
Oof.
Yeah.
That cookies and cream calls me.
Chew.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can take any of these situations we're talking about with self-discipline and the ability to maintain your line and know that you should have reacted a certain way and not do that, and then just the guilt that follows, or on the flip side, the total satisfaction to know that you stood your ground or that you acted appropriately and you're totally happy with your reactions to something. Man, that puts you on a pedestal, like, within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That self-confidence that you gain from that, it's almost undescribable. I guess it's like winning a fight with your wife. It happens once every decade or so.
Lifetime.
Yeah.
Once
in a lifetime. It's like, yes, I did it.
But it's usually like nuclear devastation at the end. No one wins.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hate it when you think you've done the right thing and you're up. You're like, all right, I knocked this one out of the park. And then somebody whom you respect and is wise points out a flaw, and you're like,
what's their job to be nitpicky? So
yeah.
It's a small victory.
Yeah, right. Hey, can I just win this one? All right.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, but if you had a situation that you came across where you stood your line of a standard, and then you confronted whatever the external factor was for what was making you want to deviate, and you just say a person, and you confront that person, you have a beautiful conversation out of it. It was just a big misunderstanding, or you explain your motives and your reasons, and then both parties are like, well, yeah, I misunderstood you, you misunderstood me, and now we're square. What a victory. And then had you not taken that step, or had you not taken that road, you'd still be traveling down the same path.
Yeah. I think you can make turn mountains into molehills, as my dad would say.
Right.
With some of that communication you're talking about, like just have that conversation, take the risk, be open. If you can just go talk to somebody about something, even if it is a shitty situation, it needs to be addressed anyway. If you withdrew from the firehouse, or you do it, whatever's appropriate, but talk about it. Go ahead and address it.
Yeah, smash it. So, as two people who I highly respect as leaders, okay? So, when you have your standards as a leader, and then you have personnel that are pushy on your level of standards, they're pushy, they test you. You want people to be dressed by 0700, and they're not. At what point do you say something to them, and what point do you become lenient with them? They're a stellar employee. The 1% of their job, they're the best, absolute best. But on the 99%, the other things around the firehouse, they kind of falter. Where do these positions weigh? And at what point do you, as a leader, have to hold that standard or kind of let the exceptions fall?
King, you want this one or you want me to go first?
You go ahead.
A conversation, like a nice, I don't think it has to be a dramatic, and it doesn't have to be this hard line, like in my personal experience, presenting, this frustrates me. I respect the shit out of you for this skill, and this skill, but it gets under my skin when this happens. So can we meet somewhere in the middle on this one so I can more appreciate this side? If you can leave pride out of it and just put some stuff on the table, rearrange it, and talk about it, I think that method will get you through. If it doesn't,
I believe it to be an issue for sure. I believe it to be an issue from a company officer and lower staff level, but I see it being more on the big picture, maybe an issue with the administrative staff and then the following. Does that make sense? Maybe you as a company officer, you can kind of control your other two personnel pretty daggone easily, right? Mm-hmm. You can hold a line pretty easily, like, hey, this is the standard, and we're going to exceed the standard. If we're supposed to be, I'm using the example of being dressed at 0700 as nothing more than an example. But on this shift, we're going to be dressed at 0700, and that's going to be the standard for this shift.
it's the expectation.
That's right. That's the expectation. You can hold your two folks pretty accountable to that fairly easily. But as that rank structure goes up and that umbrella gets wider of the people that you're overseeing, you see what I'm saying?
Are you thinking about how somebody has to? Are you looking at it for the way up, or like somebody who has to control multiple houses with the same standard?
Yeah, I would all of the above. So I would say multiple houses where you have let's go battalion chief level, in charge of 10 houses, whatever it may be. 10 houses, and he has a standard in the way he wants things to be ran. Okay? 2 houses exceed the expectation. 8 houses meet or fall below. But the ones that fall below exceed in other places that the 2 exceed the standard don't. You see what I'm saying? Am I being super confusing?
Maybe a little. The thing I'm thinking of that might be the answer. There's a reason why you respect your dad. So you value his opinion of you, and you're not going to cross him.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, even given an opportunity to shortcut something, you're doing it for your dad. You have years of a relationship. You have a bond. I think I'm addressing the question correctly. If I'm the leader of multiple houses and I take the time to establish a bond with these crews, I think that can correct any sort of uneven scale. And even if there are a few minute differences, that bond and that relationship, both ways,
It'll work both ways.
Can smooth the corners and make everything a little easier.
Sure.
I agree with that. I believe, having that communication, that common trust, but having that. I'm trying to think. I had a EMS supervisor that whenever you came on shift with him, he would kind of give you, I'm gonna trust you until you lie for me, cheat for me, steal for me. You violate any of those things, we're gonna have issues, and I'm gonna be up your butt. and he would. He held to it.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing is if you establish trust, establish a clear line of communication, and an open line of communication. So if you can trust them, you need to be able to be available to them to also be able to communicate with you. And then you should be checking every once in a while to see how things are going, and being able to have not firm coming down with the hammer, but if you see something that's not going to line, then you be able to have that open. If you have an open communication with that person, you should be able to have an easy conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of it, if they keep violating that, and it comes down to a question of policies, then you got to do what you got to do. But yeah, you said it pretty well.
Remember Ken Hoag told us that he would have a conversation like, don't make me do captain stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that.
Yeah, well, my battalion chief is always, I mean, that's been the motto for the decade plus that I've been under him is,
Right.
You do you, that's fine. You stay clean and keep me clean and we'll be gravy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get involved unless I have to get involved. So you don't do anything that's going to get me involved. And it works out. Everybody's happy.
I think the industry standard is don't cause me paperwork.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think that's the correct terminology. You're
Yeah.
right. I don't want to do paperwork today.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Respect, man. Respect from communication. That's the best foundation.
I think that's one of the downfalls that comes from some people is where they feel that respect from rank means respect for the person automatically. And it's two different things.
Absolutely.
And you have to understand that even if you're coming to a position of power, respect is a two-way street. If you want people to respect you, you've got to show them respect from the get-go.
Agreed.
Absolutely. 100%. What about you talked about at 18 about your kind of this development of this routine. I think that gets rid of the pushy nature from personnel just based off of habit. Do you think there's any logic to that? Just okay, so Steve has set this routine of how we function throughout our day, and that's the way we do it. So there's not really room to push. And if there is some pushing in some sort of area, it's kind of self-correcting. It's kind of the rise and fall with the waves. Stuff comes and goes, but at the same time, the shoreline's still there. So it's
Humans love consistency.
right.
Yeah.
I think it's like deer. That's why deer hunting to me is so easy because they're creatures of habit. You just have to figure out where they eat and where they sleep and get in between it, and you're good. It's not that hard. It's not rocket science.
Man, I'm gonna have to pick a different subtitle for posting the podcast. Now we're into hunting.
It's just, it's the creatures of habit, just like humans.
It makes sense, man.
Yeah.
So get between me and a Chick-fil-A, and you'll find me.
That's right.
Or PTs.
Or PTs.
PTs. I would say PTs over Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, that's true.
For sure.
That's true. We've been talking about a lot of self-reflecting stuff, being angry at yourself for not trusting your motives or trusting your instincts. How do you build trust for yourself? Like, what's that exercise look like to where you do start to trust those instincts and like we know how to build trust with friends.
Sure.
Don't lie to them. That's a good start. But how do you learn how to trust yourself? I think if you can figure that out, then earning trust from your people you're working with should be pretty easy.
Yeah, I think I believe it can only come with time. Kind of how wisdom is gained. Wisdom is only gained with time. That's it. You can't read it in a textbook. You can't do any of that. Wisdom and the ability to trust your own instincts only comes with time. Seeing or recognizing that something feels a certain way and then seeing that play out.
By time, you mean experiences happen in time.
Right.
So,
sure.
So it gets tested through experiences.
If you feel something in your guts, a situation, whatever it may be, and you react a certain way or don't react a certain way. Let's go with don't react a certain way. Okay, so you feel something in your gut that says you should react, and then you don't. And maybe not react. How about respond? Maybe you see something that you should respond to, and you don't. But your guts say you should. And then it plays out to where if you had responded, the outcome would be different. That's a lesson learned. That's a time.
Certainly.
That's a time where you should have trusted your instincts. You
You should trust what you're feeling on the inside. So that's a moment of wisdom, the ability to learn from a past experience. So having the awareness to be able to reflect back to that is how you gain that. So when you get that feeling again, maybe you should act appropriately upon it.
Yeah. You know, that tiny little moment where you're deciding, am I going to trust my instincts here or am I going to lean? There's several things you're juggling.
Yeah. Is it emotion? Is it reaction? Is it appropriate? Is it inappropriate? Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough in that moment. I think if you can just spread that moment out, think it through, give yourself that, every psychologist in the world tells you to count to 10 or
Right.
take a deep breath, whatever. It's probably pretty good advice.
I've heard from several people who I've deemed to be very wise that we're all idiots until we're 40. You don't have any life experience until you're 40. And these are people who are younger than 40. Some of them are younger than 40, and they're just like, I'm dumb. I'm totally dumb. But when I get to 40, I will have lived enough years and had enough experiences in my life where I can start interjecting, some of the lessons that I've learned. But until you hit that many years on the planet and have had that many years of adult interaction, you're just dumb.
I'm almost there, and I don't know if I feel like I'm like that wisdom person.
Well, yeah, but
I have some experience. I try to pass on what I know, but
yeah. I wish it was true, but I'm 42 and I'm still dumb.
Well, I think that
dumb.
you would find, the listeners and the people who seek wisdom and seek the decisions and the lessons learned from people who we deem as wise. I'm including myself.
But you know what?
That we look at folks like you, and there's things to be gained. We don't ask a 21-year-old what they think about self-reflection.
But
it's not
true,
a thing.
true.
It's not age. There's
It's time.
There's wisdom and experience.
Sure.
So it doesn't matter if you're 40 or if you're 26. So if you got somebody who's later in life coming in, say, to the fire service, they're not going to be as experienced as, say, the 24-year-old or the 26-year-old who's been in since he was a junior firefighter or at 18. So I think
Maybe firehouse related.
But I think you can do that in any trade because I think it's mature.
What about life in general?
I think it's maturity versus immaturity. And you have immature 50-year-olds versus a mature 26-year-old who brought up with a strong work ethic, been working with their father in their shop, since they were, old enough to hold a hammer.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So I don't think, like, I see where that's coming from, where you have wisdom at 40, because that's an age, that's some sort of limit, especially somebody who's younger and doesn't realize that, like, I'm close to 40 now, and I don't feel like I'm close to 40. Like, I still remember, like, 40 in my mind. When I remember when I was younger, I saw somebody who was 40. Is like, God, that guy looks old. And I'm now approaching
Thanks,
that
man.
age, and I look in the mirror and I'm like, man, I don't look like that guy was 40.
But you do.
But I do. I know I do. Yeah.
There's a reason I'm wearing this hat
So
right now.
it's like that spatial time.
It's
But with wisdom, with experience comes wisdom, and I think there is also a maturity versus immaturity factor associated with it.
There's no doubt that wisdom comes with age.
What is it? Experience is a cruel teacher, but she will never lie to you.
Yes.
Nice.
Absolutely. Wow.
Coined.
Trademark. Hoffman Enterprises.
Now, I totally agree. Maybe, probably, I would say a lot of wisdom in life in general, but definitely experience within a certain field. We're talking about firehouse specific.
Yeah.
If you started in early and you have reached 40 years, so at 40 years old, odds are you're 19, 20 years into the service as a paid person. Most of the time they don't get into their 21, or I didn't, into the paid side of things. But okay, so say you start at 18. So you're 20 plus years in. You're pretty wise. You should be pretty wise.
So you can kind of equate that to, like, if you say life and a job, or wisdom in a job comes with time. Wisdom in life comes with time. So you can kind of put those two together. So if you're talking about life experience in general, then yes, the 40-year-old's should have more life experience. In the most part, there's probably some that still have a lot of stuff handed to them, don't have quite the struggles, but those that kind of know how to work for something.
Well, think about
offer the younger generation.
Yeah, I'm with you.
A lot of wisdom.
think about a man who became a father at 21 years old versus a man who became a father at 40 years old.
Yeah.
Just because he's 40 years old doesn't mean that he necessarily has the best wisdom and experiences as a father, because that's a new experience to him versus the 21-year-old. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
It's an
because you
interesting
also
way to
have-
look at it.
Yeah.
Because different life experiences leading up that 40-year-old
That's right.
to fatherhood versus that 21-year-old who went from pretty much from childhood himself or herself to
Yeah. That's
that.
it.
I'll throw a little nugget at you.
Hit me.
My 42, still learning lessons as fast as I can.
Damn handsome.
Damn good looking.
Thank you. The last lesson I learned, and I had this little note here to hopefully bring it in, crisis management. I used to spend so much energy trying to prevent, like safeguard against failures or a crisis coming up, like just trying so hard to keep all the defenses guarded.
Yeah.
And
Risk reduction.
yeah, I think there's value in some default risk reduction, but I feel now sitting here in front of you that just sit back and relax a little bit. Crisis is going to come. When it comes, manage it and then move on. Like try not to let it ramp up and turn into something that you're really stressing over. I think that's going to be like my 2021 lesson learned is crisis management instead of letting it get to be this life altering and something that's stressing me out, causing me to lose sleep, that sort of
Right.
thing. Yeah, just you can't protect against everything. Stuff comes at you from
Well, it's never going to stop. Ever. Ever.
yeah.
You can try your best to manage your way out of your career, out of life, whatever, but it's not going to stop. It's never going to stop. Mm-hmm. Life is not sunshine and rainbows. It's gonna have dark days.
Yeah,
And
peony corns.
That's it. Peony. Yeah, life is not all sunshine and peony corns, but you're gonna have dark days. That's in your career. That's in everything. So I'm tracking what you're putting down for sure.
You can't change your environment. You can only change your emotions towards that stimuli.
There you go.
Good advice.
Very, very good. Very good.
Hey, let's test what Walicki got us.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All right.
All right.
I got the cups right here. Yeah.
Do we need to clap this in and clap this out?
No. That's just organic. So a little bit of backstory. We had a good captain from our service named Matt Walicki who gave us a wonderful bottle of Scotch Whisky. It's got our actually has a personal engraving towards us on the
Yeah.
label.
Here, I'm gonna throw it right in front of the camera so I can trim it.
Love it.
Yeah.
Glenlivet.
Appreciate you, Walicki. This is a
Thank you,
stand-up
Walicki.
move, man. All right, boys.
Oh, I'm nervous.
It's got a cork on it.
If this is garbage, I'm gonna tell you it's garbage. By the way,
Yeah.
you're gonna get my honest opinion.
That last thing I tested was awful. Tasted like the inside of a warehouse. All right.
Has the smell of something I can get on board with.
I've had a Glenlivet before.
Check it out. Hold on. Before you drink it, get you a little inhale with your nose.
I did.
Hold that breath, then taste it. And that way you got it in your sinuses and your throat. And you're good to go.
I can dig that. I can dig that.
That is tasty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, you throw a nice,
Dude, I'm going 1 to 10. I'm going easy 7.
I'd throw one of those nice big one single ice cubes
Yeah.
in there. Let it cool it off some. That's pretty
Finishes
good, man.
well.
Yeah.
I'm a big finishing guy. Way it lingers.
That finish is like the Hayden,
Basil Hayden.
The Basil Hayden has that peppery finish, but that is smooth.
That's fantastic.
It's not overly sweet.
Yeah, I'm giving that a 7 all day.
I'll give it a little 7.5 for that.
7.5? Ooh.
Yeah.
All right.
But
Maybe we need to, if we're going to get into the fireman's mindset of sampling whiskeys and bourbons and all that kind of stuff, maybe we need to come up with a scale.
I need to be like the knife guy on the Forged in Fire.
Yeah.
It will drink.
It will drink.
It will drink.
Drink.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we should come up with a scale.
Yeah. Man, that was good.
That was good.
Thanks, Walicki.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Walicki.
Yeah. Nice. We'll hit that a little more on the next show.
For sure. Absolutely.
Nice.
Cool.
All
Been
right.
real. It's been
Yeah.
real fun.
Yeah. This is a good deal.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Yep.